Discover the incredible 3-month journey that changed the life of a billionaire's son forever. Johnathan, the golden boy of Chicago's elite, stood in a mansion that echoed with memories. He had everything: a father who could summon wealth with a snap of his fingers, and a life that glittered like the diamonds at hand. But on the day his world shattered, it wasn't diamonds, not the cars, not the privilege that filled his heart. It was stark emptiness. His father's unexpected death sent Johnathan spiraling into the abyss of sorrow. Suddenly thrust into the mantle of a billion-dollar empire, he realized that inheritance came with shackles of expectation and a gnawing sense of pointlessness. What was the point of a fortune if he had lost his guiding star? His mother had slipped away long before, leaving only faint memories, layered rifts, and unanswered questions. Johnathan wandered lost, his heart heavy, life a blur. He threw himself into endless meetings, corporate nonsense, masking his pain with smiles. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was suffocating under a legacy that felt heavier by the day, one that had no meaning beyond numbers and spreadsheets. A call from charity awakened him, an opportunity to help at an inner-city community struggling beyond his comprehension. Skeptical yet desperate, Johnathan traded his silk ties for a worn-out apron. This was not just volunteering, this was his chance to find purpose. Hesitant, he stepped into a world painted with struggles and dreams, each face telling a story of resilience. That's when he met Maria. She was juggling 2 jobs, a warrior with a heart that often bore the weight of a lonely battlefield. The tension sizzled between them as they clashed over how to rebuild the community center. Johnathan's privilege bubbled to the surface, clashing against Maria's raw reality. She saw him as a rich boy playing at hero, while he struggled to find the right words, lost in a sea of humility. Every day here was a lesson. He learned the importance of hard work, the fierce love of a single mother, and the grit of a community that had fought through despair. The library walls resonated with children's laughter, while Johnathan felt hope flicker within him, igniting a realization that luxury meant nothing compared to the laughter of a child discovering their dreams. Just as he felt truly at home, shadows emerged, a well-dressed rival from his father's past claiming his inheritance. The threat loomed large over the center he had worked tirelessly to support. Should he leverage his money to save his newfound family? Or stand shoulder to shoulder with those who had taught him what it meant to fight for something real? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Heart pounding. Johnathan received a letter from his estranged mother, a knotted thread leading back to family secrets and unresolved pain. It shook him to the core, revealing the fractured legacy he carried. Everything was at stake, but his choice now could mean the difference between preserving his family's power or forging a new identity connected to love, community, and hope. That as darkness gathered around him, he stood on the brink of change, holding tightly to the blossoming relationships he had forged. Would he have the courage to step forward, to embrace both the struggle and the triumphs of the human spirit, or would he falter under the weight of his privilege? One question loomed. Could he choose loyalty over legacy before everything else crumbled away? Johnathan stared at the letter, his chest tight and thoughts swirling like leaves caught in a storm. The words twisted and turned in his mind as he fought to comprehend the emotion behind them. It was just paper, yet it felt like a physical weight pressing down on his heart. After what felt like an eternity, he drew a deep breath, folding the letter carefully and tucking it into his pocket. He looked around the community center filled with laughter and color, a stark contrast to the gray shadows lurking in his mind. He had found a semblance of belonging here, a feeling he had not known in years. But now, the knot of his past pulled at him, threatening to unravel everything he'd built since his father's death. "Hey, Earth," to Johnathan, Maria said, her tone teasing but her eyes serious. She had been working beside him tirelessly, just finished prepping snacks for the evening program. He could sense her impatience. She had a way of cutting through his fog, pulling him back to the present when his mind drifted to dark places. "Sorry, just lost in thought," he replied, rubbing the back of his neck in an attempt to ease the tension. "Lost in thought or lost in privilege? Because it sure looks like you're in La La Land again, rich boy," she shot back, crossing her arms, an eyebrow arched. He chuckled, even though her words stung. It was true. He didn't belong to this world entirely. But as he met her gaze, he felt the familiar flicker of defiance rise within him. She was right to challenge him. He needed it. "What if I told you I'm trying to make sense of my past? Might help me fight for this future," he said, his voice steady but filled with vulnerability. Maria's expression softened, and her arms fell to her sides. "Okay, let us talk. What is eating at you?" It wasn't easy to open up, but the warmth of her concern made it more manageable. He shared pieces of his family history, explaining his mother's departure, their broken ties, and the arrival of that letter. "Johnathan," she began gently, "your past doesn't define you. You have a choice. Every day, you want to build something real here for the kids, for yourself." Her words hung between them, powerful and raw. He felt a spark of determination ignite within him. Maybe it wasn't just the legacy he was fighting for. It was a chance to create something new, something stronger than the shadows of wealth. "Can we fight to keep this place alive, together?" he asked, his heart racing, hope threading through his doubt. Maria smiled, a real smile that lit up her face and warmed his heart. "Absolutely. But we'll need a plan, and you know what that means. No playing hero with your wallet. We're in this together." Her seriousness forced him to nod. They could work as a team and grow from their differences. By involving the community and rallying every local spirit, they had a chance to save the center, but there were many who would resist them. Days turned into nights of planning, outreach, and preparation. The determination in Jonathan's heart began to overshadow his fears of the rival threatening his family's legacy. But as they gathered momentum, that rival made his move, crashing into Jonathan's newfound world like a thunderstorm. Every confident step forward seemed to set off alarm bells. Each time Johnathan felt closer to his goal, the threat loomed larger. As they prepared for the community meeting where they needed to present their plans, his mind drifted back to the letter. The pull of his mother's words echoed. Could the fight for this center lead him to discover more about himself, about the family he barely knew? The night of the meeting arrived, and the room buzzed with anticipation and anxiety. Johnathan glanced at Maria, who gave him an encouraging nod. With a deep breath, he stepped to the forefront, ready to voice their plans and summon the courage of the community. But suddenly, the doors swung open, and the rival strode in, a smile plastered on his face, carrying the weight of threats that chilled the air. How would Johnathan respond? Would he stand tall beside Maria against this challenge, or would his past threaten everything he had fought for? What secrets would unravel when confronted with the enemy he never expected? Jonathan's heart raced as the doors creaked open, the late afternoon lights spilling in, illuminating the gathering and casting long shadows. The rival Marcus Harrington stood there, tall and confident, exuding an air of power Johnathan could almost taste. There was an unsettling familiarity in his expression, a predatory smile that seemed to say he held all the cards. A subdued murmur swept through the crowd, tension wrapping around the room like a thick fog. Johnathan could almost feel the eyes of the community on him, scanning for his reaction. Was he going to stand his ground, or would fear flicker across his face? He gripped the edge of the podium tightly, knuckles whitening. "Good evening, everyone," Marcus's voice rang out, honeyed yet cutting. "I see we have quite the congregation here tonight. Ready to discuss what exactly?" He was probing, testing the waters, and Johnathan hated how it made his stomach churn. "Upgrading this community center," Johnathan blurted out, the fervor surprising him. He straightened, locking eyes with Maria, who stood firmly beside him, a silent anchor in the storm. "Just because you've thrown money at this place doesn't mean you know what it needs. What it needs, my dear Johnathan, is a little more of my influence and perhaps less of your naive notions," Marcus replied, his smile widening as he took a step closer, invading Jonathan's space. "Let us be honest, this community is not your responsibility. It never was." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Johnathan felt the pressure of their gazes, the unspoken weight of their hopes pressing down on him. He had fought hard for this moment to claim his part in the community, to push back against the cold shadow of his family's wealth. But Marcus was right. It was complicated. The roots of his family legacy intertwined with the very foundations of this place. Do you really think it's a question of responsibility? Johnathan shot back, his voice steadier now, igniting with passion. It's about making a choice. I choose to fight for these kids, for a home they can count on. A home you could never understand. Marcus let out a dark chuckle, and the crowd reacted with a mix of surprise and intrigue. Strange, coming from a boy who had everything handed to him on a silver platter. What do you know about struggle? Every word he spat was a challenge, pulling Johnathan back to every moment he had hidden from reality. Yet a part of him ignited. He remembered Maria's words, the choices he could make, the future he wanted to fight for. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone who had come tonight, willing to bet on a better tomorrow. I know enough about loss to understand that nothing is truly guaranteed, Johnathan said, his voice rising, steady and clear. You may have money, but we have heart. That is far more powerful. The crowd reacted. Whispers of agreement rippled through the room. Johnathan glanced sideways at Maria, who looked inspired, her eyes sparkling with renewed hope. It was that very flame of determination that spurred him on. Marcus narrowed his eyes, caught off guard. He didn't expect this fight from Johnathan. As the tension hung thick in the air, Maria leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. We need to show them what we're about. Make it personal. Let us go ahead with our plan, Johnathan replied, a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. He felt a fierce alliance with the people around him, a heartbeat echoing through the community center. He stepped forward, ready to face Marcus fully, prepared to lay out their vision, every detail that would breathe new life into this place. But the rival's presence was a shadow over their moment, and Johnathan knew their words had to cut deeper, strike harder. Would this meeting turn the tide for what they believed in, or would it all come crumbling down around them? As they prepared to speak, the tension mounted, every moment hanging precariously in the balance. Would their vision ignite a communal spark, or would it be extinguished by the forces against them? Suddenly, the crowd fell silent as Marcus cleared his throat. Before we continue, let me remind you there are consequences for fighting above your weight. Are you prepared to face them? What consequences awaited Johnathan and the center? Would their fight rally the community, or put their dreams in jeopardy? The silence in the room was deafening. Johnathan felt the weight of Marcus's words settle over him like a dark cloud. The looming threat hung in the air, choking the hope that had just begun to flourish. He glanced at Maria, who frowned, her brow furrowing with worry. He could see it in her eyes, the unspoken question. What now? Determination ignited within him. We're prepared, Marcus, not just to fight for ourselves, but for everyone here. We know what's at stake. The crowd began to murmur again, a simmering undercurrent of support rising to the surface. Johnathan felt it, a palpable shift. Maybe this wasn't just about standing against Marcus. Maybe it was about forging a unity that had long been missing. Marcus waved a hand dismissively, a self-satisfied smile spreading across his face. Unity? You think that can match the resources I bring to this table? I can turn this place into a monument. Wealth talks, Johnathan. And you? You're selling dreams. With each word, Marcus leaned closer, his breath heavier, as if trying to physically intimidate Johnathan. But instead of recoiling, Johnathan leaned in, and he could feel the energy of the crowd pushing him forward. Dreams can't be bought, Johnathan shot back, defiance fueling his voice. They're built through hope, through hard work. You may have your funds, but we have something you can't buy: desire. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Maria's eyes sparkled with fire. Jonathan's heart swelled. He was no longer alone in this battle. Every face around him represented a story, a life yearning for change. Marcus's smile faded, replaced by a look of irritation. Desire? A noble sentiment, but it rarely pays the bills. And yet, Johnathan continued, his voice stronger now. Desire often fuels the very things that create change. We want more than just a community center. We want a community, a place where kids can grow, learn, and thrive, a place they can call home. He took a deep breath, his chest rising with conviction. You may have the money, but we have passion. We're ready to fight tooth and nail for this. And I'll be damned if I let you crush our vision just for a profit. Marcus's eyes narrowed, the challenge igniting something darker within him. Be careful, Johnathan. People who stand against me tend to regret it. I won't hesitate to use my influence to destroy everything you're fighting for. What are you so afraid of? Johnathan challenged, his voice steady as he met the rival's gaze. That we'll succeed without you? Or that we'll expose your weaknesses? The crowd gasped collectively at the boldness of his words. Johnathan could feel the barrier cracking. There was truth in his challenge, a whisper of doubt creeping into Marcus's facade of confidence. Is it really so hard for you to understand? Johnathan pressed on, sensing the tension shift. This community is stronger than anything you could build alone. They're not just faces to you, they're family. And this fight is for them, not for your ego. With each word, he felt their support rise, lifting him higher. Voices joined together, echoing their defiance. He looked to Maria, who nodded, her smile radiating strength, a fascinating contrast to Marcus's growing frustration. Marcus recoiled, caught off guard. Something changed. The aura in the room shifted further, transforming into palpable energy that sparked hope in their hearts. They linked arms, standing together as one, a united front against the tide of greed. Before Johnathan could extend the moment, Marcus turned, his expression now a mask of fury. You think unity will protect you when all of this comes down? Remember this moment, Johnathan. You'll wish you had stayed in the shadows. With that, he marched towards the exit, the sound of his footsteps echoing like a final warning. The crowd was buzzing, excitement mixed with apprehension. Johnathan turned to Maria, and the weight of their victory, however small, began to settle. But could they truly withstand the storm Marcus would surely unleash? Would they be able to hold on to the dreams they had fought so hard to articulate? As the door closed behind Marcus, a light flicker sparked in the crowd. We have to finalize our plans, Johnathan said, adrenaline coursing through him. We need to be ready. I want to outmaneuver him before he strikes again. But deep down, a question lingered in his mind. Would they find a way to protect what mattered, or would the fight cost them everything? How far would Marcus go to silence them? And what sacrifices would Johnathan need to make to protect his newfound family? The atmosphere was electric, thick with a mix of hope and fear. Johnathan felt the pulse of his heart beat in time with the murmurs of the crowd, their energy swirling around him like a storm. Maria stepped closer, her hand resting on his shoulder, grounding him in the moment. He could see the fire still burning in her eyes, and it fueled his resolve. Let us take a quick inventory of what we have, he urged, scanning the faces around him. We aren't just fighting him, we're building something real together. We need to divide tasks and make sure everyone knows their role moving forward. The crowd quieted, nodding as the suggestion settled in. Johnathan felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. These were people willing to stand alongside him, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt honored. It wasn't just his fight anymore. It was there's a tapestry of lives interwoven with a common goal. Okay, Maria said, her voice rising above the murmur. We have a community hall to reserve for meetings. I can reach out to local businesses for support and sponsorship. Johnathan felt a surge of strength at her words. Yes, and I can start drafting our proposal. We need to be clear about our vision, a safe space for our children, resources for the arts, education, everything that makes this community thrive. The crowd buzzed with renewed energy. One of the older members, Mrs. Jenkins, stood up. Don't forget the garden program, she added, her voice shaking but strong. It's important for teaching our kids where food comes from, how to maintain the land. We can restore the community garden. Naturally, Johnathan replied, his heart swelling with admiration for her passion. Everyone has a piece of this vision, and every piece counts. As they moved forward, Johnathan felt the optimism mount in the room, but lurking in the back of his mind was Marcus. He could almost hear the man's sarcastic laughter, declaring the plan a fool's errand. But this was different. This time, Johnathan wouldn't let fear take hold. Let us set a meeting for next week, he continued, adrenaline propelling his words. We'll need to gather data and outline our goals. Everyone deserves to be heard, and we'll show Marcus that he can't just push us around. The excitement swelled as people spoke over one another, sharing ideas and hopes. The room transformed from a battleground of fear to a canvas for possibility. Johnathan found himself a little breathless, realizing they weren't just preparing to fight Marcus. They were resurrecting a community spirit long forgotten, As the discussions continued, he closed his eyes for a moment. He imagined the community center bustling with laughter, children learning in the garden, families coming together. These visions felt real and tangible, more so than anything Marcus could ever offer with his wealth. But then, a shadow crept back into his thoughts. Was he really equipped to lead these people? His confidence waned for a moment as doubt slipped in, whispering dark thoughts. What if he made a mistake? What if his plans didn't succeed? But then he opened his eyes and looked around at the people who believed in him. Their faces were lit with passion, their eyes reflecting dreams similar to his. They were counting on him, and that ignited something fierce within him that he raised his voice, cutting through the noise. Listen, we're going to face challenges. Marcus won't make this easy, but the only way we can lose is if we stop believing in each other. Together, we are unstoppable. Let's harness our power to fight, to create, to thrive. Applause erupted, and for a brief moment, it felt like they could achieve anything. But deep down, Johnathan felt the weight of uncertainty return. How would they stand against whatever Marcus had planned? As the meeting wrapped up, Johnathan hugged Maria tightly, wanting to commit this sense of unity to memory. We will not let him break us, he whispered to her, hoping to convince himself as much as her. But an unsettling thought gnawed at him. What kind of forces would Marcus unleash to tear them apart? Would they be ready in time? Only the coming days would tell their story. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the community hall, Johnathan couldn't shake the adrenaline that coursed through his veins. The vibrant conversations had given him a glimpse of hope, but the weight of the impending confrontation with Marcus hung heavily in the air. He packed up his notes and glanced at Maria, who was engaged in deep conversation with Mrs. Jenkins about the garden project. "Hey," he called softly, catching her eye. She smiled, the warmth of it momentarily lighting his worries. "Can we talk?" They stepped outside, bathed in the fading light of day. The fresh air felt like a balm on his stressed mind. He took a breath, trying to assemble his jumbled thoughts. "We really did something in there, didn't we?" Maria said, her eyes sparkling. "This community could come together." "Yes, but—" His words trailed off. How could he express the apprehension sinking in his chest? "I'm just worried about what Marcus will do. He is not going to sit back and let us build this." Maria nodded, the confidence in her smile dimming slightly. "I know he has resources, but we have something he doesn't. Heart. People want this, they believe in it. We just need to push harder." Her words resonated, digging deeper into his spirit. Johnathan imagined the faces of the people they would be fighting for, the collective dreams resting on the shoulders of that small hall's gathering. They were indeed a community, bound by more than just fear. They were tied together by hope. "I just wish we knew what his next move would be," Johnathan confessed. "If we could figure that out, we'd be, I don't know, 2 steps ahead." Suddenly, a crash echoed from within the hall, interrupting the moment. They both whipped around to see a group of younger kids dashing out, laughing and shouting. It was a relief, a small reminder of why they were fighting. Those kids were the future of this community, a future threatened by Marcus's ambitions. "We can't let anyone get hurt," he murmured. Maria placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We won. We'll take action, and we'll do it together. Think of all the people who showed up tonight. If we rouse this spirit, we can defend our vision." Just as her confidence began to return, something flickered at the corners of her expression, a moment of doubt that flashed across her features. Johnathan caught it instantly. "Are you scared too?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Realizing that even the strongest among them might have doubts, she looked away, her gaze drawn to the sky. "Of course. I'm human. Sometimes, I wonder if this is worth the fight, if we'll really make a difference." He searched her face, feeling her vulnerability. "But think about what giving up would mean. We can't let Marcus win. We have to hold on to this hope. It's all we have." Maria turned back to him, her expression firming. "You're right. If we don't fight for this, then what have we really built?" Nodding, he felt fortified by her words. They walked back into the hall, the laughter of children greeting them. But just as they stepped inside, the door swung open once more. A tall figure loomed in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light. Marcus. He had a smirk plastered on his face, and John's heart sank as the tension swelled in the room. Well, what do we have here?" Marcus drawled, his voice dripping with a condescending tone. "I see the little party is still going strong." As his icy eyes scanned the hall, Johnathan could feel the collective breaths of the crowd turning shallow. What did Marcus want? Just remember, Marcus continued, stepping fully into the light, I don't play fair. The crowd stiffened, their earlier triumph overshadowed by uncertainty. Johnathan felt the ground beneath him shift. They had to be ready for anything. But how would they safeguard their dreams against the storm that Marcus would undoubtedly unleash? As the weight of that question hung heavy in the air, Johnathan clenched his fists, determined that this fight was just beginning. The tension in the room was palpable as Marcus strode forward, his presence casting a dark cloud over the community hall. Jonathan's heart raced, each beat echoing in the silence that enveloped them. He felt a knot tightening in his stomach. This wasn't just an ordinary confrontation. Look at this place, Marcus said, sweeping his arms wide. A little group of dreamers trying to change the world. But let us be honest. Dreams only go so far, don't they? The murmurs rippled through the crowd like a wave. Jonathan's eyes darted around the hall, searching for the fierce defiance that he hoped to find mirrored in others' expressions. He saw Mrs. Jenkins clenching her hands, anger boiling under her surface. He glanced at Maria. Her eyes were fiery, reflecting determination that had been dulled but not extinguished by doubt. You're wrong, Marcus, Maria spoke, her voice steady but fierce. This community believes in a vision, a better future for everyone. We want you back down because you're afraid of losing your grip on power. Marcus's laughter echoed off the walls, sharp and mocking. You think you can take me on? You really believe you can stand in the way of what I want? You might have heart, but heart doesn't win against money or influence. Johnathan took a step forward, finally finding his voice. It's not just heart, Marcus. It's unity. Look around you. We are a community. And united, we're stronger than you think. He gestured to all the faces watching, some filled with fear, others filled with hope. Marcus's expression hardened. Hope, you say? Hope won't fill your pockets or build that little dream facility your needy community craves. One swift maneuver legal, of course, and all your efforts can be wiped away. He paused, letting his words hang heavy. It's a shame, really. I was almost impressed by this little gathering of yours. But I guess I just can't help but crush a few dreams. Silence fell as the crowd grappled with his threat. Jonathan's heart sank, frustration welling inside him. Fear was creeping in, threatening to overshadow their fight. But he would not let it. Not now. Enough, Maria shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. Do you think we're just going to roll over? We'll fight back. It won't be easy, but we'll never stop trying until we achieve our goal. You've underestimated us from the beginning. Marcus's smirk faltered for a moment, just a flicker but tangible enough that Johnathan caught it. Maybe Maria was right. Maybe there was strength in the resistance of the community. Fight all you want, Marcus countered, regaining his footing. But just remember, I can play chess while you're all just pawns in my game. With that, he turned and strode toward the exit, leaving a charged atmosphere behind him. The crowd exhaled collectively, tension thrumming in their veins as they processed his words. Don't listen to him, Johnathan urged, feeling boldness seep back into his bones. We must unite, not just against him, but for each other. That vision he scoffed at? It can be a reality if we stand strong together. We can't afford doubt. We have to be loud and relentless. Despite the fear still itching in the air, small nods began to ripple through the crowd. Maria stepped beside him, her expression resolute. Let us take this fight to the next level. Organize our voices. Who's with us? Hands shot up, voices rising in unison. Hope rekindled. Jonathan's heart soared at the sight. This was their moment. The spark of revolution flickered brightly, but would it be enough to stand against a force like Marcus? As the renewed energy pulsed through the hall, Johnathan realized they were just getting started. Together, they need to outsmart him, to rise above fear, to ignite that hope into a flame that could not be extinguished. Yet as plans formed in their minds, Johnathan couldn't shake a gnawing unease. What if Marcus had something up his sleeve, a move they didn't see coming? The question loomed over them as they rallied, determination setting the hall alight, but Johnathan knew they had to tread carefully. The real battle hadn't even begun. What dangers awaited them next? The crowd buzzed with excitement, a tangible energy that filled the room. Johnathan could feel the weight of their hopes pressing against him. urging him to harness their collective passion. Maria stood beside him, her fierce gaze scanning the room, seeking validation from those who had gathered. "Okay, everyone," she called, clapping her hands to draw attention. "Let us start planning. We need everyone's voice, every skill we can muster. We need strategies that matter." The murmurs grew louder, enthusiasm swirling around them like a current. Jonathan's heart beat with a newfound rhythm, encouragement spreading through each pulse. He stepped towards the front, urged on by the faces before him, some hopeful, some anxious, all united against Marcus. "Let us brainstorm our action plan," he said, trying to control the excitement bubbling within him. "How can we effectively voice our concerns and prepare for whatever Marcus throws our way?" As ideas began flowing, a flurry of suggestions erupted: rallies, social media campaigns, town meetings. Each idea built upon the last, creating a mosaic of determination and resilience. Johnathan felt pride swell in his chest. They were more than just a group of dreamers, they were becoming warriors for change. But with every booming idea, a whisper of doubt flitted through his mind. What would Marcus do next? He had resources that far outstripped anything they could pull together. Yet the spark in the hall drove back the shadows of uncertainty. They were responding to Marcus's challenge, not cowering under it. "Let us make the town aware of his tactics," Maria insisted, clenching her fists. "He thrives on fear, but we can expose his weaknesses. People have the right to know." Someone shouted in agreement, urging the crowd on. Johnathan allowed their enthusiasm to lift him. "Let us highlight local businesses that he might hurt," he proposed, "and show the town that we won. Let him run over us." A chorus of yes erupted, murmurs blending into a powerful wave of determination. The energy shifted. What had once felt like an uphill battle began to resemble an uphill fight, the kind that could ignite change, the kind that could wake a community from its daze. Ideas transformed into actions as they set a date for the first rally, a space for voices to rise together. Word spread, and through the cracks of fear, resolve seeped in. Johnathan could see it in their faces. People were shaking off the passivity that had held them back. As plans solidified, a thrill of fear and excitement coursed through him. They were taking a stand now, but with that came inevitable risks. He couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus was plotting his next move, calculating how to counter the growing tide of defiance. Hours passed, and the meeting disbanded in a flurry of hope, fear, and a shared belief in the impossible. Johnathan lingered, watching the crowd filter out, the weight of their collective dreams pressing on his shoulders. He felt a sense of responsibility. Were they truly ready for what lay ahead? "Johnathan," Maria said, pulling him from his thoughts. "We need to prepare, and we need to be smart about this. Do you think Marcus will retaliate soon?" He nodded slowly, the gnawing worry gnawing deeper. "I think we're playing his game, and he's good at chess. But we need to be ready, and we will be." As they left the hall, determination surged within him, yet a flicker of dread lingered. What would the next move be? And would they truly be ready to face it together? Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows. Johnathan looked ahead, steeling himself. The fight was just beginning, but he had a growing belief that maybe they could win if they stayed united. But deep down, a nagging feeling remained. They had to stay vigilant. What was Marcus planning? And could they really outsmart him when he always seemed one step ahead? With the sun setting behind them, Johnathan turned to Maria, who was still mulling over their next steps. Her brow furrowed, and her fingers danced nervously against her thigh. "What do you think? How do we make this rally something they'll remember?" Johnathan sighed, glancing back toward the emptying hall. "We need to make it personal. People need to connect not just to the cause, but to each other. It can't just be about fighting Marcus. It has to be about the lives we're affecting." Maria nodded, a hint of a smile breaking through her worried expression. "We need stories. Real stories that show what's at stake. Let us invite locals to share their experiences. The more personal, the better." The thought excited Johnathan. He imagined the town square filled with passionate voices, real people sharing their fears and their hopes. That could stoke the fire of change. That would make it powerful, he agreed. "We can create a video montage to play before the rally. Show their stories on social media leading up to the event. Let us get everyone involved." As they walked, the air grew cooler with dusk, and the city lights flickered on one by one. More than ever, Johnathan felt they were standing on the precipice of something big. He could feel the townspeople rallying to support each other, their spirits lifting like the rising tide. What will Marcus do when he sees that? Maria wondered aloud, breaking his reverie. He won't just sit back and watch. We can expect he'll retaliate. That's exactly why we have to stay ahead of him, Johnathan replied, his voice firm. We need to anticipate his moves. If he tries to undermine us, we can counter him with unity and transparency. The more people are involved, the harder it'll be for him to dismiss us. They arrived at Maria's car, and she took a deep breath. We need to meet with the local businesses, too. If they understand what's at stake, maybe we can strengthen our support network. They have a voice, too, and we can leverage that. Excitement coursed within him again. Maybe they could inspire those businesses to openly endorse the rally after all. If Marcus was threatening their livelihood, they too would be thrust into the fire of this conflict. Just as they were about to get in, Maria paused, her expression changing. Do you think we're really ready for this? Marcus, he is not just some guy. He is ruthless. Johnathan felt the weight of her words settle in the air between them. Yeah, I do. We can't let fear guide us. Change has always come from those ready to step into the unknown, to take risks, he said, steadiness in his voice. Together, they set their eyes on the horizon, where the last slivers of sunlight mingled with the darkening sky. Let us work on that video, reach out to those businesses, and gather stories. We need to get moving, Maria declared, resolve tightening her features. But as they drove away, Johnathan felt unease creep in again. They might be gathering strength, but would they be enough? Would hope alone carry them through this storm? Days turned into nights filled with planning and outreach. The community started to pulse with purpose. Posters, flyers, and shared moments on social media ignited a fire in people's hearts. But looming in the shadows, Johnathan could sense Marcus's calculation, an answer to their every move forming in silence. The day of the rally approached like a freight train, excitement mingling with dread. With each moment that passed, the question grew stronger in Jonathan's chest. How would Marcus strike back, and would they be prepared to face him when he did? The night before the rally, Johnathan lay awake, grappling with the noisy whirl of thoughts, unable to shake the feeling that tomorrow would change everything. Was he ready for what was coming? And would they stand united when the storm finally broke? The morning of the rally dawned bright and beautiful, yet Jonathan's heart sank under the weight of anxiety. He stood in front of the community center, his ear tuned to the sounds of bustling life. People were gathering, faces lit with hopes and dreams, but internally, he felt a storm brewing. The community had come together, and for the first time, it truly felt like something meaningful was about to unfold. Maria bounded over, her eyes shining with excitement. Look at this crowd, she exclaimed, gesturing toward the gathering throng. They're ready to fight. He forced a smile, imagining the palpable energy that rippled through them. Yeah, but what if Marcus shows up? We need to stay vigilant. Let him come, Maria said, her chin lifting in defiance. We've fought hard to get here, and we're not backing down now. As the crowd swelled, the cheering voices surged. Johnathan felt a rush of adrenaline. Each person here had traveled their own road to this moment, and together, they were weaving a tapestry of shared struggle and triumph. Together, they stood at the precipice of change. When it was time to begin, Johnathan stepped up to the podium, the sunlight streaming down and warming his skin. His heart drummed furiously in his chest as the crowd quieted. Maria stood at his side, solid and unyielding. Taking a deep breath, he locked eyes with her, drawing strength from her unwavering gaze. This, he began, his voice rising above the anxious murmurs, is about more than just saving a community center. It's about our lives, our children, our future. We have the power to reclaim our lives from those who think they can dictate how we should live. Today, we fight together for our dreams. A surge of applause broke through, but it wasn't just applause. It was the reverberating echo of hope. He gestured toward the young families, the kids, faces full of wonder. Each one of you matters, your stories count. Together, we're stronger than any threat that comes our way. As people stood, rallying around his words, he felt something shift. The fear that had tightened in his gut began to melt away beneath the glow of collective resolve. He talked about unity, followed by a few heartfelt stories shared by community members about what the center meant to them. With every word, he could see the fire igniting in their spirits. But then, like a shadow slipping into the light, Marcus sauntered in, his disdainful smirk piercing through the atmosphere. Conversations turned hushed, eyes wide, a thick tension settling as he approached the podium. Johnathan's stomach flipped. Doubt began to creep in again. Listening to the rumbles of hope, "Are we?" Marcus drawled, hands eagerly clasped behind his back, his voice dripping with condescension. "How quaint. But what do you really know about struggle? You throw words around like a child with crayons. Exciting, but messy. You don't know us, Marcus." Maria shot back, stepping forward, her voice brimming with fire. "You underestimate the strength of our community. None of us are pawns in your game. We're so much more than what you want to dictate." He could see the flicker of uncertainty cross Marcus's face, the stirrings of real fear as he scanned the crowd. They were no longer fragmented voices. They had become a collective force, each person adding to the momentum that pushed against the weight of intimidation. "Is that so?" Marcus retorted, his bravado wavering ever so slightly. "Passion has a lovely spark, but it can't pay the bills or hold up against real power." "No," Johnathan interrupted, electric energy building in his heart. "But passion can spark change. The fight we're igniting comes from something far stronger than money. It comes from love for our community and the will to rise against those who would see us torn apart." With that, an uproar of cheers erupted. He seized the moment, feeling the pulsing energy flow through him. "This is our moment. Together, we can unearth the truth, show who we really are, and create a legacy we can all be proud of." The crowd surged with excitement, their collective voice ringing out against the challenges they faced. He saw Maria smile, her eyes glistening with determination, and in that moment, he knew they would never falter together. Facing Marcus head-on, Johnathan felt a wave of conviction wash over him. This community is more than an investment to exploit. It's an interconnected family that we're building together. "Marcus, your wealth doesn't mean you can deprive us of our voice, our dreams, or our way of life." Marcus's expression morphed, dismay cracking through his polished confidence. As he retreated slightly, Johnathan seized the opportunity, rallying the crowd further. "Let us build this together. You ready to show Marcus exactly what we're made of?" As cheers erupted, Johnathan felt the rush of unity swell. What had felt insurmountable was now within their grasp. The rally surged on, hope and camaraderie fueling their fight. The rise of voices echoed across the square, and for the first time, Johnathan truly believed they would emerge victorious. The chains of the past were breaking, and he could finally envision the bright, gleaming future they were crafting together. This was their moment, and nothing would extinguish their flame. Together, they were ready to ignite a transformation that would resonate far beyond this one fight. And with every heartbeat, he knew Marcus's days of manipulation were numbered. Their strength rested not in wealth, but in unity, and that truth was the most powerful legacy they could ever build. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the skies a brilliant orange, Johnathan smiled, knowing he was no longer lost. He belonged, and this community, this family, was his future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how to fight for their dreams. You need to be part of this journey.